Two peas in a bong. It's your boy KP. It's your boy KP reporting live from sunny California. You know what? I just wanted to tap in real quick. Um, was sitting here and I was kind of listening to the playback of the show from last night and just was kind of thinking, like, man, DP had really asked me a question and it was thought provoking. And the question was pertaining to Steve Kerr. Um, I don't know if you guys have watched the show, and those of you that haven't watched or have watched, you know, just want to um, talk to you guys a little bit about Steve Kerr and your thoughts on Steve Kerr. Is Steve Kerr an elite NBA coach? Is Steve Kerr an elite NBA coach? What do you guys think? Is he elite? Is he not elite? I'll show you that somebody's in the chat room. Um, Question is it Steve Kerr an elite NBA coach? Is an elite NBA coach? And this is pertaining to, you know, Steve Kerr has quite a bit of a resume with the Golden State Warriors. They've got the best record in NBA history, 73-9 record. He's won multiple championships. He's led USA basketball to a gold medal. Is Steve Kerr an elite NBA coach? What up, Bong? Thank you for tapping in. Right now, I'm just it. I jumped in live because I just had these thoughts as I was kind of listening to the playback from last night's show. And one of the questions was pertaining to Steve Nash. I mean, not Steve Nash, excuse me, Steve Kerr. Is Steve Kerr an elite NBA coach? And one of the things that was said in the chat was they were talking about his development of talent. And, you know, does Steve Kerr develop talent or is he good at coaching a ready-made talented team? So just want to jump in and see if anyone was going to tap into the live, if I could have a discussion on that prior to trying to talk about this. I mean, try prior to the NBA games, because once the NBA games happen and the playoffs happen, it's going to be really hard to really focus on Steve Kerr and ask this question and really have a discussion on this question, given the fact that um, the Warriors aren't playing tonight. The Warriors played last night. The Warriors will play again this weekend. So that was kind of my thought, my questions. Um, but again, it was something that I wanted to have a discussion about. I did take notes. One of the things, Steve Kerr has been a coach for the Warriors since 2015 season. When he got to the Warriors in the 2014-2015 season, won a championship. And Bong, thank you for saying that. I'm gonna pull that up. Bong is saying that Kerr is definitely a Phil Jackson disciple. Uh, he is the Phil Jackson disciple. He is. He also played under Popovich, oddly enough. So it's like Kerr got teaching from Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich. Now, when Kerr got his opportunity, it seemed like it was a couple guys that got opportunities at the same time under Phil Jackson. It was Kerr and I believe it was Derek Fisher, because Derek Fisher went to the New York Knicks that same year. So yeah, I could see that. I can understand that. Um, I think that Phil Jackson is an elite manager of talent, not necessarily a developer of talent, but a great manager of talent, managing egos, being able to get the most out of the top players when, let's say, another top tier coach may not be able to get the most out of them, a la Doug Collins, Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan. There's a difference. And Bong said Kerr turned down the Knicks job, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I don't remember because it's been so long, but I know that I believe that him and Derek Fisher got hired in that same like off season, and one took the Knicks job, the other one took the Warriors job. But diving down because I went down this rabbit hole. So I just start talking about it. If more people come in the chat, that's fine. If people don't, that's fine. But I do want to talk about this. So Kirk got there in the 2014-2015 season. They won a championship. But that particular year, when Kirk got in, they didn't have no draft picks. So there were no draft picks. The very next year after they won, they got Kevon Looney. Kevon Looney, oddly enough, Kevon Looney is still on roster. He is still on the roster. He was a first round draft pick out of UCLA. So you had Kevon Looney. The next year, you had Damian Jones, and this is 2016. You had Damian Jones. You had Patrick McCall. McCall won a couple championships with the Warriors. Then he went to Toronto, and because he got traded to Toronto at the end of the year or something like that, he won a championship with Toronto. So Patrick McCall three-peated. Then in 2017, the Warriors drafted, they didn't have a first round pick. They had a second round pick. They drafted Jordan Bell. Jordan Bell was the second round pick out of Oregon. So that was another player that the Warriors had. Jordan Bell started out, he started out pretty promising, pretty athletic. It was like, okay, they got some young guys that can move. It was, the Warriors, the problem was their interior. And so it's like it's looking like they're addressing the interior by getting some young athletic guys. But after some time, Jordan Bell didn't necessarily stick around. The following year in 2018, they got Jacob Evans, first round pick from Cincinnati. And I don't even remember Jacob Evans with the Warriors. Then in 2019 they got Jordan Poole. That's a name that a lot of people will remember. They got Eric Pascal, and he's from Villanova. And he was one, I believe he was one that was looking for his offense in Golden State as opposed to setting the screen and trying to get Curry open. I think he was on multiple streaming platforms and podcasts kind of talking about that and talking about how he didn't like that, like he wasn't really feeling the Warrior system. So that didn't necessarily last in 2020 and so that 2019 year, um, that was the year that they went to the championship. No, excuse me. The 2018-2019 year was the year that they went to the championship. Um, that was the year that they that Kevin Durant subsequently got hurt, and yeah, they lost in the finals to Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors. So that was the 2018-2019 season. So Durant left in the offseason. Klay Thompson was hurt. When Durant left in the offseason, the Warriors did get a parting gift. So instead of Durant just leaving outright, he went to the Nets. It was a sign and trade. So when Durant went to the Nets, the Golden State Warriors then got D'Angelo Russell, and they had to take on his contract, his $100 million contract. But essentially, it gave them, while Klay Thompson was recovering, it gave them a big three. It gave them D'Angelo Russell, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and that was not necessarily the order of who was best or who I thought was best. I'm just kind of saying the big three that they had when they had that. So, but in that same time frame, of when they had D'Angelo Russell, they believe they traded D'Angelo Russell that year, and they ended up getting Andrew Wiggins. But they didn't have a good season that year. That year in the you know 2019 the 2019-2020 season, the year after they lost, they went 15-50, and you know that gave them a lottery pick. With that lottery pick, now I think a lot of people that were watching the Warriors were believing you had the answer. This was the answer that they were looking for. They needed a big. And the best big that seemed to be available in that draft was a young man out of Memphis that, played for his high school coach, then turned college coach, and Penny Hardaway. And that young man was, excuse me, feel like I got to sneeze. All right. That young man was James Wiseman. So James Wiseman, legit 6'11", 7-foot player, could score, could had soft touch, could shoot it from the outside, could score inside, block shots, rebounded, just seemed to be, a problem. It was like, okay, the Warriors are now going to get a big, and after they get this big, they got Draymond, they got Curry, they're gonna have a healthy Klay Thompson, they've got Andrew Wiggins. There are now some pieces together, and the Warriors will be competitive again. So this was kind of the thought, and you thinking that okay, James Wiseman is going to be a cornerstone to this. But in that 2020-2021 season, they went 39-33. So, um, didn't necessarily have a successful season that particular year. But in that year, when they, had that record, James Wiseman got hurt. And when James Wiseman got hurt, um, eventually he would miss the following season. Now, the Warriors found themselves back in the lottery for the 2021 for that 2020-21 season, and 2021 they drafted Jonathan Kuminga with the 7th pick overall from G League Ignite, and they drafted Moses Moody in the first round, pick 14 out of Arkansas. So at that point you have 2 first round picks, but you would be playing without, James Wiseman that particular year. So looking at the Warriors going into that um 2021-2022 season, what did they end up doing? They end up winning the championship. They beat Boston in the finals. So they captured their championship. They've got these young group of guys. They've got a couple first round picks. You got Jordan Poole. You still got James Wiseman didn't play that year, but you got James Wiseman still that's coming back. That's going to be coming back from injury. You've got a young Jonathan Kuminga. You've got a young Moses Moody. It Things seem like they had you had Andrew Wiggins, you had Kerr, you had Clay, so you had the Splash Brothers. You had Draymond. Things seem like they were going to be looking up. It's like, okay, maybe the Warriors have figured it out, and maybe they're going to be, competitive again going forward. So that was the 2020, 2021, 2022 finals. And the special thing about that was that Curry finally got the MVP award, the finals MVP. So it was like that was something that had been looming over his head because they had won 3 other times, and all 3 times prior to that 4th time winning, he had never got Finals MVP. The first time it was Andre Iguodala, for those that you that remember or don't remember, and then the second and third time it was Kevin Durant. So now Curry finally won Finals MVP. The Warriors are back being America's best basketball team, and seemed like it was things seem like they were on the up and up because you had a young core of guys that seemed like they were only going to get better within the Warriors system. Fast forwarding to the 2022-2023 season, again, you still got this young core of guys, but then at that point, I believe they got rid of their young guys. And that young guy that they got rid of, make sure it was, I believe at that point, that 2022-2023 season, yeah, they got rid of James Wiseman. James Wiseman, at that point, he was averaging 6.9 points a game with them through the first 21 games, wasn't starting. He's playing about 12 minutes. So about 12 and a half, 12 and a half minutes, averaging 7 points. That's pretty solid. But just didn't seem like he was producing the way that the Warriors wanted him to produce. And eventually, he was traded to the Detroit Pistons. When he was traded to the Detroit Pistons, he went to Detroit, and right away he was playing okay. He averaged 12.7 points, so close to 13 points a game. So it seemed like he was getting better as he left the Golden State Warriors. They did make it to the playoffs, but they were competitive, and they were in competitive mode in terms of trying to continue to win NBA titles. So, after that, until that 2022-2023 season, one of the draft picks they got was the first round pick was Patrick Baldwin Jr. Um, and then after that, in the 2023-2024 season, they got Brandon Pajinski, and they got Trace Jackson Dale Davis. It's Trey Jackson Davis, but I want to shout out his dad, Dale Davis. So that's why I throw that name on there, throwing a little respect on his pop's name, Dale Davis. Um, but anyhow, they got them. Pajinski, so Trey's, he had decent numbers. His first year with the Warriors, um, he averaged 7.9 points a game in 16 minutes. So, 7.9. So you might as well say 8 points. So he's pretty effective, right? And then Brandon Pajinski finished fifth in rookie voting, and his first year, rookie of the year voting, I should say, in his first year in 74, he averaged 9.2 points, and he started 28 games. So it seemed like when they moved on from Jordan Poole, it seemed like maybe this is a guy that can fill the void. So that was last year. This year, he's averaging 11.7 points, closer to 12 points a game. So still in the mix, still solid. But looking at it, and just looking at where they're going this past year, they drafted Quentin Post, and he was a second round pick. Um, he's actually, in the mix. He's playing some, but looking at it, the question that, again, that was asked was, how is Kerr in developing talent? You know, I think he's an elite coach in terms of X's and O's, in terms of taking the talent that he has, a talented team, and maximizing and getting the most out of a talented team. But people are asking, is he a good developer? So, looking at some of the picks that he had, James Wiseman, mm, he didn't really develop good. Um, he did better once he left Golden State. You look at someone like a Jonathan Kaminga. Well, you know what? I'm gonna come back to Jonathan Kaminga. Before I did talk about Brandon Pajinski. Let's talk about Moses Moody. Moses Moody, in his 4 seasons with the Warriors, 4.4 points a game in close to 12 minutes, 5 points a game in 13 minutes his second season, and 17.5 minutes a game in his third season, averaging 8 points, and in his fourth season, averaging 22 minutes. He's averaging close to 10 points a game. So Moses Moody, there is some production with Moses Moody, and he continues to get better, but he is still seeing limited opportunity. And then when he's in there, um, he's not really looking for his offense as much as he probably should, because the team is still based around Curry and some of the other primary scorers. ahead of him right now in the rotation. So you have a Curry, you have Brandon Pajinski's ahead of him in the rotation, Buddy Hield's ahead of him in the rotation for the now for the playoffs. Jimmy Butler's ahead of him in the scoring rotation as well. So he doesn't necessarily get to look for a shot, but he's pretty effective. The other guy that I'm looking at is Jonathan Kaminga. And Jonathan Kaminga is the one that like is kind of tricky because you see Jonathan Kaminga sit a lot and you're like, why is this dude sitting? And is he productive? You start to question, you start to wonder what's really going on. So in his first season with the Warriors, he played 17 minutes. He averaged 9 points a game. And that was the year they won the championship. And he actually started 12 games that year. In his second season with the Warriors, he played close to 21 minutes a game. He averaged close to 10 a game, 9.9. In his third season, he played 26 minutes a game, and he averaged 16 points a game in his third season. So it started to look like he was turning the corner. He played in 74 games, started in 46 of those games. And then in his fourth season, he played in 47 games. He started 10 games. He's playing 24 minutes a game, and he's averaging 15 points a game. So there is some development going on with Kaminga. However, as such as Moses Moody, he's just not seeing opportunity. And I don't know when those opportunities come. I don't know if those opportunities come once, you know, Jimmy Butler is over the hill, or with Moses Moody once Steph Curry is over the hill, and you know, really don't know. Um, but based on those stats and based on the fact that those two players are getting better, and then you look at someone like a Jordan Poole that they had, and I read you Jordan Poole's stats. His first couple seasons with the Golden State Warriors. His first year was 8.8 points a game. His second year in 19 minutes, he was 12 points a game. In his third year with Golden State, he's playing 30 minutes a game. He was up to 18.5 points a game. And in his fourth season with Golden State, in 82 games, which he started 43, he was averaging 20 points a game. 20 points a game. So, you did see players increase in their scoring ability and their scoring potential. Again, it was just a thing. It just seems like it's a thing of fitting in with Curry and who gives the team the best chance to win. So um, I hope that broke down, kind of helped you guys see if Kerr develops talent, if he doesn't develop talent, if it helps, with your thought process and what you're thinking and listening to this. But anyhow, I just wanted to kind of put that out there. I want to put it out there, and get that information out there so that people could see it. Another thing, in looking at it is, there's been different assistants over, Kerr's tenure with the Golden State Warriors. His first year, the lead assistant was Alvin Gentry. Alvin Gentry's been going. He's now a scout for the Sacramento Kings. But throughout the process, I believe there's been like two guys that have been there the whole time. And those two guys, um, Bruce Frazier, and the other guy that's been there the whole time I believe it's Ron Adams. Ron Adams more so on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, Ron Adams and Frazier, they've been there the whole time with Steve Kerr, but with some of the other coaches, they've shuffled in and out. At one point Luke Walton was an assistant. And I don't know if people remember, but when they got off to that 73-9 start, well, 70 yeah, the 73-9 start for that season, it was Luke Walton that was coaching in the beginning of the season. So Steve Kerr gets credited, but I think they won like their first 25 or something like that. Um, and so Bog is asking, so after my rant and after everything I said, so does he develop talent or not? I think he does. I think he does. I think unfortunately the situation is just you still have Steph Curry. And that's more so the elephant in the room. Out with all the talent that Steve Kerr has developed, it's still not enough to surpass Steph Curry. And as long as you have that man on your roster, he's going to be the lead guy. And the sets and the plays that you run are going to be designed to get him looks and to get him going because he is that dynamic and that deadly from the floor. So, with the guys that they're developing, they have to learn how to move without the ball. They've got to learn how to set screens. They've got to learn how to pass. They've got to learn how to play defense. They've got to learn how to play bigger in stature than what they are because they're undersized. They've got to learn how to rebound, all of these things. So it's a multitude of things that these young players have to learn um, besides scoring. And I believe that that's part of the problem because most young players that come into the NBA, they want to score first, especially in the era of basketball and from grassroots level to high school, college, all of these things. They want to score first. And on this particular team, it may be setting screens first. It may be rebounding first. It may be playing a gritty style of basketball first. It may be playing out of position first, all of these things, but you're learning how to sacrifice first. And, yeah, you still have the pressures of trying to win, trying to get back to the mountaintop in a crowded Western Conference with a LeBron James, with a Nikola Jokic, all of these people. So I think it becomes difficult for the young guys in their developmental process because they're unable to freely play through mistakes like they may be able to do on other teams. Like you look at someone like a Jordan Poole. Like Jordan Poole's got his ring. He's went to Washington. Um, he's putting up stats, he's putting up points, but if you look, he has a lot of lowlights. He's got shots that hit nothing but backboard, straight backboard. And it's like, ooh, like that's not stuff he could necessarily get away with in Golden State. But now that he's in Washington and he's the lead guy, he's able to get away with that a little more. So, just but I think ultimately that, yeah, Steve Kerr does know how to develop talent. I do. You know, this kind of shows you how hard it is to kind of stick in the NBA because a lot of those guys that I mentioned that were initially on the team, they're not on the team anymore. And the guy that's oddly enough the guy that's had the longest tenure in terms of players drafted since Curry has been there has been Kevon Looney. Kevon Looney has sacrificed the most out of his game, but he still seems to have a job and he still seems to be effective when he gets in the game. One of the things that people don't even realize with Kevin Looney, when he was coming out of high school going to UCLA, his comparison was Durant. Like he could put the ball on the ground, he could shoot, he had offense. You look at some of those Rico Highs runs at UCLA. Look at what Kevin Looney was doing. Look at how he was looking. He looked very, very different before he accepted his role within the Golden State Warriors system. So yeah, he's been there pretty much the whole time, and he's continued to be effective. He doesn't jump very high, not a very good athlete in terms of leaping ability, but very, very effective to say the least. And that came with the development under Steve Kerr. So when it's all said and done, I will say that Steve Kerr does a pretty good job of developing talent. All right. Thank y'all for listening to my rant. Got to get y'all the balloons. As I put up the peace sign, I'm getting out of here. I will see y'all tonight. Damn, I didn't get no balloons. Here we go. I'll see y'all tonight after the wrap up with the basketball, and hopefully we'll see how these picks do. All right, it's your boy KP. Um, just wanted to hit y'all with that real quick, and I'm out. Peace.